play, and welcome once again to another edition of the Suns Jam Session podcast. That's right, Suns, John and Matthew, Jam, Jam. See what we did there? How many of you have been listening all this time and you didn't realize that Jam stood for John and Matthew? Well, there's a little knowledge drop for you right off the top of the podcast, and that's what this podcast is going to be. It's a series preview of the Western Conference Semifinals between the Phoenix Suns and the Denver Nuggets. And hopefully we bring to you a little bit of insight onto who that Nuggets team is, because obviously if you're a fan of this podcast, you know who the Suns are. You know our strengths, our weaknesses, our expectations, our wants, our needs, but you might not know a whole lot about Denver, because let's just be real, Matthew. Who here watches Denver?
I mean, who watched them in the playoffs? God, no. I went to a ballet recital over that thing. I could not watch that series. My bad.
It's just the Denver Nuggets are kind of like the Utah Jazz, and they've mirrored each other over the past 3 or 4 seasons, where they have good teams. And this is obviously a good team. They're the number 1 seed in the Western Conference, and nobody talks about them. Nobody watches them. They're not sexy. And that's obviously what scares me about this team. It reminds me of those San Antonio Spurs from once upon a time, an unsexy team that no one really talked about, but they just kept winning, doing so with fundamentals and some guys who could just tear your heart out. So for those of you who don't know much about the Denver Nuggets, well, we're going to break some things down here. And White Devil Black Metal says Denver doesn't even watch Denver in the chat. So appreciate you guys watching along live. So that's what we're going to do, is we're going to have some knowledge drops here for you. We're going to break down some numbers, talk about the season series between these two teams. We're going to be crunching the numbers. We're going to have our calculators out like it's tax season. You know, just like, did I not carry the one? Well, this doesn't make sense. How is Denver the number 1 seed? And they fucking suck at rebounding. Like, there's a bunch of different reasons why this team was successful as it was. So we're going to talk about those. We're going to start to dissect some of the matchups in this series. And ultimately, at the very end, we're going to talk about who we believe will win this series and in how many games. So plenty to talk about in this edition of the Suns Jam Session podcast. Again, thank you for watching and or listening. If you're watching, thumbs up. If you're listening, 5-star review, or don't. I mean, it's a series preview. We're going to get like 20 people to watch this and like 10 people will listen to this. And if you're one of those lucky people, hey, you lucky son of a bitch, you learned that JAM is John and Matthew, and that's the Suns Jam Session podcast. So you've already won. Before we've gotten to anything, you've already won, guys or girls. The 1% of girls who listen to this.
The 1%. Yeah, we do know it's only 1%. And it is my sister, your wife. Not even. She doesn't listen. It's your mom.
It's my mother. Hi, Mom. I love you. Enjoy the series preview.
Hello.
So, hey, watch the tone with my mom. You leave her alone now.
Oh,
so
I'm sorry, dude.
Before we get into that, I gotta. Is your wife touching your leg again? Stop. Leave him alone. Leave him alone.
She's under the desk.
Leave him alone. He's trying to record a podcast. So what'd you think of the Cowboys draft?
Yeah, I didn't watch.
Yeah, okay.
I don't watch the draft anymore. I'm sorry. I know you got friends to hang out with at the bar, but you had a good time, right? And offensive lineman, you told me they got surprising pick.
Well, it's funny. So I go and I watch the draft with a bunch of my buddies, and a few of them are Bears fans. I got like two Bears fan, a Niners fan, and a Lions fan, right? And we're all sitting there, we're talking, and the first 2 guys to come off the draft board that were linemen were a Cardinal and a Bear, and we're like, high five. Offensive lineman, baby. You know, it's just like, it's so lame. We look forward to it every year, and it's like, but I'm so happy.
Cool. I always like how Bill Burr says about it. He's all like, why do you go and sit there and you watch it? He has a whole rant on it, of course. You know how he is. He's like, just wake up the next day and just see who got picked. It's
right there. It's like, and then
what was it? Was
the
it a live
17th
one?
pick?
Was it live?
What do you mean?
Was it like live somewhere? Like they did it in Nashville last year, right?
Yeah, they did in Kansas City.
Oh, so it was
Patrick
outside,
Mahomes brings the fucking trophy. Yeah, they got like a little amphitheater thing they have built. It's annoying.
Okay.
Yeah, it was. I'd rather miss it, just like you said. Just like look at the newspaper the next day and be like, "Oh,
no,
the 17th pick."
It's a reason to get out and drink. That's why they do it. It's entertaining. Get you guys go out and get drunk, drive home, and just see what happens. That's the
reason to hang out with friends, just like the Suns Jam Session podcast. So I'm hoping that you guys are watching this,
please.
And you're hanging out with friends while you're doing so. You're like, hey, come over here. Hey, come here. Go check
if you don't have friends, make them up.
Yeah. Here's my other AirPod. You can listen to this too. We can listen to this together. So let's talk about this series preview. Let's pop them if we got them. Okay? Follow me at Darth Voida. Follow him at Matthew Lissy. Follow the show at Suns Jam. Pop him if you got him. And let's talk this series preview, man. Western Conference Semifinals. All right, Jamsters, here we go. It's a repeat of 2 years ago. The Phoenix Suns en route to the NBA Finals in the second round, the Western Conference Semifinals, played against the Denver Nuggets. You okay there, bud? Fucking, there he goes. Thanks for muting like a professional. Wow, I don't know what the heck that was. Did she grab something other than your leg?
Won't even. Yeah. It won't even let me click on it. Oh, my computer's like does that thing where it glitches and I can't click on stuff. And like I'm trying to click it and it didn't work. So you heard me
from
cough.
A cough to a laugh to a cough laugh.
That was impressive. I didn't know what to do there.
so
way to start.
These two teams 2 years ago, obviously, played in the Western Conference Semifinals. It was a series that obviously spawned a lot of, in my personal opinion, bad fandom on behalf of the Phoenix Suns. If you recall, it was a series in which the Phoenix Suns swept the Nuggets. They beat them, obviously, 4 consecutive games. And at that time, in that series, it was a lot different because the Suns were they had the home court, right? The Suns were the number 2 seed. The Denver Nuggets were the number 3 seed. Obviously, this season, they're the number 1 seed. We're the number 4 seed. They have home court advantage in this. But in that series, the Suns beat the Nuggets 122-105 in game 1, 123-98 in game 2, 116-102 in game 3, and 125-118 in game 4. Not a close game in the bunch. So not only did they sweep them, they beat the shit out of them in more ways than one. In the games in Denver, there was obviously the Suns and 4 fan who got in a fight with the Denver fan, flashed the 4 at him, and that spawned a whole lot of just Phoenix Suns fan douchebaggery that to this day I'm embarrassed about. Aren't you?
You're embarrassed because we lost, right? It was more embarrassing because we lost.
No.
Really, even at the time, I thought it was fun. I mean, people get in fights. I mean, did you see like the Kings and Warriors fans getting in? They've been fighting each other too. Like, I think what it is our fans aren't used to getting out drinking that late into the summer, where we're just hanging out with other people wearing different colors, so we don't know what to do. So we punch them in the face. It's the same thing with the Kings fans. They're doing the same thing with the Warriors because they've never been in the situation, so they're just fighting each other. I think we got that out of our system. The only thing that was embarrassing was like the money count in the finals. Yeah, that was dumb. It. There was some weird characters out there in the finals, and we kind of felt like things were kind of going the other way. But I thought it was okay and it was fun because we were winning. That's all. That's all that mattered. That's the only reason I actually kind of enjoyed it. I don't want anybody to get beat up, but if those people started it, then punch them in the face.
Then you finish it.
Yeah,
and again, like I get that side of it, and that happens. You know, Zayn Zor was about, I mean, yeah, there was a lot of characters and it was fun, but there were aspects of it I didn't like. And I really thought fans of the Phoenix Suns, it kind of felt like new money. It kind of felt like a team that had been to or hadn't been to the what?
You just burp?
I did. I burp talk.
Yeah, I just. All right.
I tried to play it off. I was hoping you didn't notice,
we got a cough and a burp. What burp? We got a burp.
We have a burp.
What's next?
It's a sun. But you could tell it was a team that had not been to the playoffs in the Twitter era, in the social media era. The last time the Phoenix Suns were relevant were in 2010. Twitter was in its infancy, as was Facebook, as was the majority of social media. I mean, I remember back in the Nash era, my MySpace page looked pretty dope as I had the different buttons, and I'd change them for every series. Like I was all into it. I feel like now here we are 2 years later playing the Denver Nuggets. And not only is this team and franchise more mature, I'm hoping that the Suns fans are more mature. And I said this before the postseason began, and I'll continue to say, just be humble, Suns fans. There's no need to go out there and just talk mad shit over stupid things. Don't bring yourself to the level of the opposition, because when you talk about the Denver Nuggets, this is a team and this is a franchise and a fan base that has a lot of disdain for Phoenix. We embarrassed the Nuggets 2 years ago. As I just mentioned, as I went through those scores, this was a series that wasn't even close. I mean, in that final game, Chris Paul led all scorers with 37 points. I mean, this was a different type of ass kicking that they got. Now, obviously, Jamal Murray didn't play in that game. And in that season, if you recall, the Denver Nuggets were the 1 seed. They fell down to the 3 as Jamal Murray was injured, and they didn't have it. And that's been their battle cry for 2 years. So understand that as we go through these matchups and we talk about this series, no matter what happens, you are going to have games in which the Suns will lose. They're not going Suns in 4 in this series. I just don't see it happening. It's against the number 1 seed. It's against a fundamentally sound team. It's going to happen. And 2, when those games happen, Jamal Murray is going to have something to do with it. And if any way, shape, or form he has a solid performance, you're going to hear it from the Nuggets fans. You're going to be like, well, 2 years ago, if we had him, this is what would have happened. And just smile, nod, carry on, and do what I always do. Bookmark him on Twitter, and after we beat him, then you go back and you beat Pat.
Is that what you do? That's how you get back at them? You actually bookmark them?
That's your fucking app.
Oh, that is any other jamsters out there that do that? I'm sure everyone does that. I didn't even know that was a thing.
Yeah, I let people. I've got all kinds of bookmarks from like Mavs fans. Like, how many championships do you have? So if we ever win a championship, I'm gonna go be like 1.
You know what? Have 1 championship. Suns fans, be douchebags. Suns fans, be quiet, be humble, be yourselves in these situations. If you can't handle the alcohol, drink more and just make it a big mess, because we're all going to be done with this pretty soon. It'll all be over. Either Suns or the Nuggets are going to win the series, and then we can move on and keep talking shit, because that's what fans do. We all talk shit. We all talk shit. We all punch each other in the face. I'm down with it. As long as you're not beating up little kids or women, it's all right. Don't listen to that, actually. Is that a bad thing to say? Is it okay?
I mean, it's actually true, but like I don't know if it needs to be said. It's common sense.
Well, I just Booker invited that guy to his house too, the Sons of Force. I assume it's okay. I look up to Booker, a guy that's 10 years younger than me. I look up to that guy.
That guy had an action figure. Like, what the fuck happened?
He did. He blew up.
He did. It was ridiculous.
It's all about revenge, man. I mean, this whole series is revenge. The Nuggets have been waiting for this opportunity to take out the Suns. It's a different looking team in the Suns, but they know that we went out to get the superstar, and they don't have that other superstar. They have Jokic, and they have good role players. They have Jamal Murray, but is he going to be an actual superstar in the series? I think at times he can be. Is he going to be as consistent as Kevin Durant and Booker? Who knows? I don't think he can be that guy, but at times he can explode. The only thing is, this Nuggets team, whatever happened during the season, great season for them. I'm sure they don't give a shit. I'm sure they played hard. They were healthy. Now they are healthy in the playoffs. That's all that matters. And they just know that this means so much. They're going into this series probably just relaxed, like, this is going to be, it's going to be whatever happens, kind of a mentality, right? They're not going to come out and be like, oh, we need that. They're going to act cool. But deep down inside, I feel like they need this. And this series might start off, just to prepare you guys, I kind of want to relate it to like the Kings and Warriors in a way where it might be down. We might be down 0-2. We might be down 0-2. And it's like, what the fuck are we going to do? Well, maybe we have some experience. The Nuggets don't really have the experience. They haven't got past us. There's been a lot of failures, a lot more on their shoulders to win this year than the Suns. So that can get in the way. But if we go down 0-2, it's not over. This is going to be a 7-game series, I'm predicting.
Okay. For sure. Okay. I'll say this. I agree when you start to talk about pressure, because there is a lot of pressure in the series on both franchises. For the Phoenix Suns, obviously, with Devin Booker and primarily Chris Paul, this is the end of the rodeo for Chris Paul, in my personal opinion. Even if he comes back next year, it's going to be in a greatly, greatly diminished role. We're already starting to see it. He has his ups, he has his downs, but he lacks the consistency, he lacks the explosiveness, and he lacks the physicality that he once had. Hell, it seems like he lacks the motivation sometimes. He's like, I could do the rip through, but then like,
looks like it just hurts.
Then I gotta do the rip through and it hurts. So
I don't want to lose my arms.
For Devin Booker, he doesn't have the pressure necessarily. He embraces what's going on. He lives for this shit. But you have Chris Paul, you have Monty Williams, you have Kevin Durant, who's 34. For some of these guys, they're at the back end of their career. They're not all in their prime like Devin Booker is. Now, that being said, I feel like it's a different kind of pressure than before, and I don't feel like it necessarily is the same. Like last year was pressure for the Suns. Last year, entering as the number 1 seed, much akin to the Denver Nuggets, there was a ton of pressure on the Phoenix Suns. They didn't respond well in the first series to the Pelicans. They won in 6, went to 7 games against the Mavericks, a team that they should have. I mean, we were predicting 4-5 in that one.
Yeah. Yep.
I mean,
is that why we're kind of scared to do it now because of what happened last year?
Potentially, yeah, because you're afraid to have to try to exceed the expectations. But I feel like in this series, the expectations aren't necessarily there on the Suns the same way they are for the Denver Nuggets. To your point, the Denver Nuggets, you have Nikola Jokic, 2-time MVP. Okay. Has he made a Western Conference Finals? I think once. No, he hasn't. He hasn't got past the second round.
Well, what happened last year?
Well, I'll look real quick. No, I mean, he didn't make the Western Conference Finals last year because it was the Mavericks and the Warriors. But looking at the franchise index, going back, I mean, he joined the team in what, like 15, 16? They've lost in the Western Conference semifinals. They lost in the Western Conference Finals in 2020 to the Lakers. That's the bubble season. Western Conference semis to the Suns, and then Western Conference first round this year is as far as they've gone. So with Jokic, they have gone to a Western Conference finals before, but that was one in the bubble, and two, they lost in 5 games to the Lakers as the Lakers were en route to the bubble championship. So when you have it's the same kind of pressure the Suns once felt when Steve Nash was a member of this team, right? He won back-to-back MVPs, and the team just couldn't. Now, they made a couple Western Conference Finals along the way, but they couldn't get over the hump. Now, granted, they put a good team around Jokic, and we'll discuss the rosters and the bench and the statistics and all that stuff here momentarily. But do you feel that if you were to say which team has more pressure to win entering this series, is it the Nuggets or is it the Suns?
I think it's the Nuggets. It's weird to say because obviously this series is going to be must watch, but I don't know how much attention it's really going to get. We'll tell by the numbers after our podcast just to see who's actually watching this series, because that's usually how we can tell. Mm-hmm. If the Nuggets fans are watching, then we're coming to talk trash, then we'll know for sure it's going to be a heavy, heated battle between these two teams. But I think the Nuggets do, but it's weird to me because I don't feel like it's a must win for Jokic. I know there's a lot out there where he has to win, but it's just like Embiid he was so close to winning, and he got further than Jokic, even though Jokic didn't make it in the bubble. Thanks for pointing that out, Gemsters, in the Western Conference Finals. But Embiid was there. He's had his chances, and I feel like he kind of gets a pass now too because he plays hard, but he's never really had that guy. Last of the 2 seasons ago or 3 seasons ago when he lost to the Raptors, that was heartbreaking. Like, that should have been a series that they could have won and went to the finals. But the only reason I'm relating that to Jokic is because I just don't think Jokic has really that other guy. You know, Embiid finally has Harden, right? He had Ben Simmons and they had Jimmy Butler, but it never really worked. Right now, Jokic has a good team. Murray just has to be that other guy. He has to come out and play like almost Booker ball, right? Not the same player, but just put up those games where like, holy shit, in order for this to work. If they were to lose a series in 5 or 6, which I don't think they will, I'm thinking they have to go get someone else. And then you can go off of that. Like, Jokic, all right, we have the other guy for you. Now figure it out. Well, it's kind of like Jokic and Doncic. Are they kind of the same, just moving the ball around, doing a lot of the same stuff out there? Yeah. And then Doncic goes and he gets Kyrie. That didn't work. But Jokic is going to have the opportunity to play with someone that's better than I think a Jamal Murray to have an opportunity to win. Because I feel like Devin Booker has a guy in KD who in the second series should come out and play a little bit better and be that guy. I mean, he had the 31 points almost every night, but you know what I mean? Just like the fuck you games. But like, I think Jokic needs that. And if he loses this, it's going to look bad. But to me, it doesn't. I think national TV, all that, yeah, they're going to give him shit. But I think this guy just needs a little bit more help. But it's a good roster. A little overrated.
Yeah, from a pressure standpoint, I think on the franchise there's a lot of pressure on the front office of the Denver Nuggets, obviously, because they're trying to put something around Jokic that's going to equate to a championship. You have a 2-time MVP, somebody who obviously is the core of your franchise, and you want to try to put all the pieces together. And again, as a franchise, if they don't win, they have some questions they need to answer. There's no pressure on Jokic. Jokic has got plenty of basketball left in him, and and he'll continue to be a great connector and somebody who will thrive in the NBA for many years to come due to the way that he plays. So, you know, pressure-wise, I feel like it's on the Denver Nuggets because they are the 1 seed. You know, now as we start to look at this series and we start to break down some of the numbers, the first thing I'll do is I'll just bring up the different regular season records and some of the metrics. Again, the number one seed, the Denver Nuggets, were 53-29 this season, whereas the Suns were 45-37. So the Suns were 8 games back of them. When you look at points per game, the Nuggets were 115.8 and the Suns were 113.6. So edge to the Nuggets. Opposing points per game, 112.5 for the Nuggets. So that was 8th best in the NBA, whereas the Suns had the 6th best at 111.6. Offensive rating, the Nuggets were 117.6 and a defensive rating of 114.2. So they have the 5th best offensive rating in the league, whereas the Suns, 115.1 was 14th and 113 was 7th in the defensive rating. When you look at rebounding, they're 19th in the NBA. That is, and by they, I mean the Denver Nuggets. The Suns were 11th. And in overall assists, this is the 2nd best assisting team in the Denver Nuggets, whereas the Suns are 4th best. 3-point shooting, this is interesting, okay? The Nuggets shot 37.9% from beyond the arc this season. That was 4th best in the NBA. The Suns were 7th best, and they were only 0.5 of a point off. They were 37.4. So you look at those metrics, and you're like, okay, they're somewhat similar. Now, obviously, both of these teams have played 5 games in the playoffs. You look at how they performed in the playoffs. The Suns are 2nd highest in scoring in the NBA. And what's really interesting is when you – well, I'll get to that in a second. But 2nd best points per game, 10th and the Nuggets are 9th out of 16 teams. But their defense has been better. They are 5th best in opposing points per game, whereas the Suns are 10th. Offensive rating, again, Denver's at 5th. The Suns are at 14th. Defensive rating, the Nuggets are at 15th. The Suns are at 7th. So, even in the playoffs, they have a better offense. We kind of have a better defense. They're 7th best in rebounding. We're 11th best. They're 6th best in assists. We're 4th best. And then if you look at 3-point shooting, they're 5th best at 39.3% thus far in the playoffs. The Suns are at 40.7 in 3-point shooting. Now, what's interesting about the Suns is when you talk about 3-point shooting, it hasn't necessarily been their forte, because 27.3% of their shots were from the 3-point range. That's the lowest rate in the playoffs by a wide margin, and the lowest rate for any team in a series in the last 4 postseasons. And the Suns were at 36.2% of their shots, which were taken from beyond the arc, which was 20th. So they're hitting their threes at a high rate, but they're taking very little of them. So it's going to be interesting because the Denver Nuggets are a team that they like to shoot the 3 ball. They have plenty of guys who shoot the 3 ball. And when you take a look at just the statistics, what does that have you thinking? How do you analyze those statistics? How does that translate to these two teams in this series?
Well, the points per game, first of all, great looking graphics. Love them.
Thank
you. If you're not watching the pod, come look at the pod. Look at the graphics. John Mayer looks really good.
Badass graphics. I got some badass graphics, guys. Come check out my badass graphics.
Nice. Wait, what are we doing? Okay, so points per game, they were down less than what the Suns were making, but that's because of the pace. And I mean, if you're talking about the pace with the Nuggets, it is down a little bit. I don't know if it's slower than what the Suns.
They also play the Timberwolves, by the way. Just
true, yeah. But even during this is like one thing where I feel like with the Suns and the Nuggets, when they go head to head, it'll be like a slow battle, right? There's not going to be a lot of tempo, really. I mean, Jokic with the long distance passes to the fast breaks might be something different, but I think the pace will be nice for the Suns. The whole regular season, obviously, where I said like the Nuggets didn't give a shit, like they got through it. They were healthy. They had a great season. That's why they were number 1 in the West. Stats, you know what I mean? I don't care, because it comes down to me. If you're asking about anything that jumps out, I don't think it does, because I think this whole postseason, including the Suns rotation, the Suns themselves this year going into the playoffs, it's just all up in the air. So I like looking into the stats where they compare and stuff, but it's such a weird playoffs to where any series you go into, you're not going to know what to expect, right? Kind of in a way, you know what I mean? So I'm interested to see like what you think too, because comparing those two and then going into the series, is it going to make any sense? Is it still going to actually look the same after all said and done? Because I feel like it'd just be a different kind of game, maybe.
Well, the statistics tell me are a couple things. One, the Denver Nuggets are an efficient offense. And the thing that scared me after the Clippers series is the lack of defense from the Suns. And if any player on their team is going to be successful due to that lack of defense, it's going to be the Jamal Murray type, because that's what we had. It was a bunch of guys. It was Norman Powell driving. It was Kawhi Leonard driving. It was Russell Westbrook driving. Those guys who attack the cylinder. You're not going to get that from Jokic. Jokic isn't going to be pounding the paint in an aggressive manner driving downhill. He'll get his pin downs and he'll get his positioning on the block, and that's where he's going to execute from. But when you have Jamal Murray, when you have MPJ to a certain extent, guys who like to try to attack the rim, that's where the Suns can be vulnerable, I feel. And when you have an efficient offense, obviously with Nikola Jokic at the core of that offense, it's going to be a pick your poison kind of thing. And if you try to collapse on Nikola Jokic, he's going to hit open three-point shooters. And as noted, this team can shoot the three ball, and they like to shoot the three ball. As we look at some of the statistics thus far through the playoffs, you'll see that some of their guys are shooting fantastic from beyond the arc. And that's something that, again, worries me for the Suns, because what killed us? Guys who were driving, equating to wide open threes, and the Clippers were knocking them down because that's what they do. The
rotations were killing the Suns.
They really killing the Suns.
They're super slow on them. And the Clippers got hot at times. I mean, they got back into the last game of the series, the fifth game, where we thought it was over, but they got into it because of the threes. Mm-hmm. That is going to be the only thing I'm just really worried about. I think you can talk about rebounding if you want, but the thing is like you have Craig and Okogie, who kind of, one of those have to be on the court at all times, right? And then you have, on the other side, you have Gordon, who is going to be the sneaky dude to grab the boards, right? They have to make sure that guy doesn't get in there. But then they also have to guard Porter Jr. Mm-hmm. So it's going to be strange. I mean, if you look at even KD and if you look at KD and Ayton, and if they're versus Porter and Jokic rebounding wise in the playoffs so far, the Nuggets, those two only have 2 more per game rebounds than the Suns players.
Yes.
So it doesn't seem that bad, but when it's getting down to second chance points, those are the ones that Craig and Okogie have to go in there and battle for themselves, and they have to put all their effort into it to help out DA.
And again, that's going to be one of those interesting observations through the series, is how much and how often do the Nuggets crash the glass the way that the Clippers did? Because that's what the Clippers were doing consistently, because for the majority of the time, they were undermanned. They were outsized. And the way to negate that is with hustle. And I think that, again, if the way that the lineups kind of are built out, and I'll go ahead and I'll do that right now. If you bring up the starters for the Denver Nuggets, they have Jamal Murray running point. They got Kadavius Caldwell-Pope playing the shooting guard. MPJ, Michael Porter Jr. is their small forward. Aaron Gordon is power forward. And Nikola Jokic is the center. The Suns, obviously, we know it well. It's CP3, it's D-Book, it's Kevin Durant, and DeAndre Ayton, your core 4. And then the question mark becomes, do you go Torrey Craig at power forward and move Kevin Durant to small forward? Or do you bring Josh Okogie in at small forward and move Kevin Durant to power forward? So if you're simply looking at the matchups between the starting 5, the first question I have for you, Matthew, is which one would you prefer Monty Williams to do? Does he stick with the Torrey Craig philosophy, or does he go with Josh Okogie? And the second question I have is, if that's the case, whichever path you choose, I'll choose the opposing path, and then we'll try to figure out what some of those matchups would look like.
Okay, yeah. And my first question really off of that, we'll just keep asking questions until we get nowhere. Booker, is he going to be guarding Murray? Or, there's a lot of talk, put in Okogie to make sure that he's on Murray from tip-off. I like that too, but the way Book's been playing defense, you just throw him on Caldwell-Pope or you throw him on Murray. And then you can start Craig, who's going to go after MPJ. My thing is, I think it's just how hot MPJ is, how good he's looking this series. He's kind of like their X factor, right, to hit the big shots. If you need that, then maybe I would just throw Craig in there. But I'm going to Okogie. I'm an Okogie guy. I want Okogie to be in the game and on Murray. I really do. And I think if you have Booker just manning up against Caldwell-Pope, that'll be great. You can have CP3 on Aaron Gordon, MPJ on Durant.
CP3 on Aaron Gordon.
Yeah, just have him throw him out there on him. What's Aaron Gordon? All Aaron Gordon does is just cut to the basket.
And
he does
dunk
those
on
back
CP3.
downs. It's gonna be a lot of CP3 on him, and he's just gonna just barrel into CP's little body. It's not gonna matter, dude. I really think that's all you do.
What I would do, so obviously I'll take the Torrey Craig point of view in this one. Torrey Craig, you put him at the 4, and he's the one who's to take on Aaron Gordon. I'm okay with that. Obviously, Ayton on Jokic. And then what that does is that allows you a little bit more flexibility with CP3, Booker, and Kevin Durant. And you pretty much go Booker, you're on Murray. Kevin Durant, you're on MPJ. And CP3, you're taking Caldwell Pope. Because Caldwell Pope, what he wants to be and where he finds success is being that spot-up guy, that spot-up shooter. And then you just tell him, fucking stay on him, because you're not going to be able to close out on him. I think that, if you're looking at the Suns' defense on their offense, I think that's the best way to do it. Again, I think that, personally, I'm with you. I think Okogie should start, because what that does is it gives you Booker and then Okogie going back and forth on Murray to try to tire him out, because he's the primary attacker. In fact, when I bring up the statistics relative to scoring in the first round, he's their highest scorer, Jamal Murray is. So if you have Okogie and you have Booker, you can run that. Or if that first substitution happens and Torrey Craig comes out and Josh Okogie comes in, now you're bringing in fresh legs right on him, and then you have Booker, fade on to MPJ. Because MPJ, as prolific as he can be at times, he is somebody who the Suns, I feel, can, as long as they keep a body on him, can control him offensively. On the other side of the ball, when the Suns have the offense, we know this from 2 years ago. MPJ is the guy you attack. He's the guy who doesn't have the lateral quickness. He's a little bigger than I think he realizes at time on defense. And that's what the Suns did consistently last time we played them 2 years ago. Now, obviously, it's not 2 years ago. MPJ is a better player. He's a lot healthier than he was 2 years ago. But on defense, he's the guy who can essentially become the pigeon. And the thing that the Phoenix Suns really didn't do against the Clippers, and I think that they're going to do a lot against the Nuggets due to the fact that Nikola Jokic, for all he is, he's not the greatest defender, is we are going to pick and roll that team to death and switches to death. You're going to see CP3 and Ayton. You're going to see D-Book and Ayton. You're going to see Kevin Durant and Ayton, all running pick and rolls in an effort to try to get Nikola Jokic onto CP3, Booker, or Kevin Durant. And again, whoever's guarding them, Ayton, with that mismatch that he won't take advantage of. You're going to have the same thing with Chris Paul and Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, Kevin Durant, Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, Kevin Durant. There's going to be a lot of high pick and roll screening from the top of the key that's going to open up different aspects and wing players on the side. I really am confident with this team offensively with our first team unit. I really think that there's some mismatches that we can take advantage, because this isn't the greatest of defensive teams in the Denver Nuggets. There are somebody that you can pick apart. I have a feeling it's going to be a very high scoring series. I really do. Neither of these teams are lockdown defenders or have lockdown defenders consistently. So there's going to be a lot of points and a lot of opportunity on both sides of the court to try to get to get to the cylinder. Now, again, going back to the Suns on defense, DeAndre Ayton, that's where his strength comes in. Because if they start running that high pick and roll with Jokic, which we know that they will, especially with Murray and Jokic, DA can defend that. And that's going to be fun.
Yeah, he can. But the only thing is he going to get pulled out too far to where he can't help with rebounding? That's one thing that's going to kind of scare me a little bit, is if he gets pulled out, then can he... It's hard to ask. It's hard to even talk about, because it's just it's easier said than done. It's one of those things where it's can you just get back? I mean, you're pulled out, but are you just going to turn around and stand there watching and help back on the boards? Because you're going to have to. And like you said, they like to shoot the threes, so there's going to be a lot of long boards. So maybe because you're out there, it might help. But if he gets pulled out there, it's going to kind of help, and that's going to kind of suck. That's why I was talking about Craig and Okogie had to really battle for the boards and then help Kevin Durant if he's down there too.
Yes.
Because there's no one else to really help those guys. And the only thing that I feel when you're talking about just the Nuggets running the pick and roll, and then you have to have someone pulled out, and might be Ayton, it's who's going to help out? Who's going to be the other guy? And then that's when the rotations come in. When you're talking about KD and Chris Paul, can they make up any kind of spacing that's going to be between them and the 3-point shooters? Because that's going to be a real thing. The offense is going to go so quick for the Nuggets, where it's just visually, I can just see the series starting where it's going to be Nuggets on a 12-2 run to start the game. Timeout, right?
Yes.
Or maybe Monty waits till it's 20-2, and then it's a timeout.
I feel like the series hasn't started, and we're already down 12-2.
Yeah, it does seem that way. But to be honest, I said 7 games. This team just doesn't have the star power. They don't have the actual just experience there. I mean, if you want to talk about the consistency through the season, the experience together through the season, just having that, maybe that's something. But what the Suns have, they have guys that have been in this situation. And that's why I compared it to the Kings and the Warriors.
Yes.
The Warriors are up 3-2 now. It's just being in the situation, man. That's all it really is. This Suns team's there. The Nuggets have not been there. They can't get over the hump yet. And if they can, then yeah, that's going to be a good defeat for them. But the Suns, that's why they got to take this series slow. And defense is going to be a big thing for the Suns because I feel like they are the better defending team right now. It's just the rebounding thing. They are for sure. And if it gets to a place where the Suns are actually losing and they're going to be down by like 20-2 to start a game, chill out. It's fine. Let the Nuggets have their fun, thinking that they're ahead, that they can actually win this series. The Suns just have in the back of their mind, like, we can get this done. They have the guys out there that have done it already.
Well,
including Aiden.
Well, and when you talk about rebounding, I think that is a valid point. And when that high pick and roll happens, what the Suns have to do is somehow, some way, have the ability to whoever's hanging out in the corners and guarding guys to only crash the glass when the time's appropriate, because that's where they find themselves getting their hands stuck in the cookie jar, if you will, is on the high pick and roll. When somebody's getting ready to go up for a shot, they leave their defender and try to do some team rebounding, and then they just pass it to the corner and it's a wide open three. So again, that athleticism and having the ability to close out defensively and rebound defensively is going to be vital to the Phoenix Suns. It's going to be absolutely vital.
Yeah.
When you look at the bench and how the benches have performed thus far in the playoffs, the Denver Nuggets have Bruce Brown. He's played 27 minutes a game, and he's averaging 11.4 points per game. Old man Jeff Green is on this team. He's been averaging 22.5 minutes per game, only 3.8 points per game, but he's just out there eating minutes. I wish we had a guy out there who's just fucking eating minutes. Then you have Christian Braun, who's 12.7 minutes played, 3.4 points per game, and DeAndre Jordan is 3.5 minutes per game, 1.7 points per game. That's their 9-man rotation through the series with the Minnesota Timberwolves. The Phoenix Suns, much different. You have Josh Okogie, who's averaging 20 minutes per game off the bench, 6 points per game. Landry Shamet, 11 minutes per game, as is Bismack Biyombo, 11 minutes per game. The difference is Bizzy's scoring 4.6 points per game, and Shamet's averaging 1.4 points per game. And then D. Lee, 8.8 minutes per game and 4 points per game. So this is going to be obviously one of the biggest questions of this series. It's going to be the depth of both of these teams. The Clippers exposed the fact that Phoenix had lack of depth, and I don't know if it's necessarily exposing it, but it's definitely putting it on blast because Monty Williams was having a horrible time with his rotations, and their bench was running circles around the Suns. Denver's bench has the second best net rating in the playoffs thus far at 3.4, while Phoenix is a negative 1.1 and ranks 9th in that category, again, out of 16 teams. So the reason that Kevin Durant and Devin Booker are number 1 and number 2 in postseason minutes is because our depth has not been able to sustain any consistent minutes. It's going to come down to Monty Williams to make sure that he has 2 of his core 4 out there at all times. But we're going to have to rely on Chris Paul and DeAndre Ayton for some minutes while those other 2 get some rest. And we're going to have to fill it with guys who can be productive. If I see Landry Shamet in this fucking series, I swear to God, man.
I'm surprised you put him on your graphic, man. How hard was it to type that one out?
Well, it's because he's second most in bench minutes for the Suns. I was going through, I was looking at the 9-man rotations. I go, this is our 9-man rotation. And again, I'll bring it up for those of you who are watching along live. When you look at their bench and you look at our bench, like I have confidence on our bench. DeAndre Jordan or Bismack. I'm gonna take Bismack because he's gonna give you defense on the interior. When you talk about Bruce Brown or Josh Okogie, or Torrey Craig, switch based on the starting, I'm gonna take our guy. Jeff Green, old man Jeff Green. Like we have better play. Like we can have Terrence Ross or TJ Warren out there to match old man Jeff Green. And then Christian Braun, who's a rookie. He's one of those guys you got to kind of be afraid of because he doesn't know any better kind of thing. But if you have, again, Terrence Ross or even Damian Lee, just not Landry Shamet. Landry Shamet. What that should be. If Zane Zor was around, I would ask him to make a song called Not Landry Shamet.
Be a difficult one to make, right?
You just say it over and over again.
You already did it. You already did it, man. Just put on a wig. You got those wigs. You can be Zanzor this year.
Zanzor. Fun fact, Jamsters, I was Zanzor all along.
Look good.
Mine have the tables turned.
Dude, okay, well, there's a guy warming up right now. They keep showing on Twitter. It's Cameron Payne. He looks like he's good, right? I mean, he's coming back. The bench thing, I think it's a little overrated with the Nuggets. I'm gonna all right, here's a little bit more honesty from Matthew, right? I'm kind of being humble. I think at the beginning of the pod when he said, chill out, Suns fans, then I'm like, okay, maybe I'll give the Nuggets some credit. I don't think this matters at all. I think because the Nuggets haven't really played anybody on the bench this playoff series against the Wolves, just shows you. I mean, they were 3 deep almost every game against the Wolves. So the Wolves, of course, are a team that's still figuring themselves out. Those guys haven't been on the court, maybe I think 7 games a series or this whole season. So that's their own problem, of course. But the Nuggets themselves, they don't have the depth I think that you guys think they do. I think what the Suns have are a couple guys off the bench, either Craig or Kogi, that can come in, play some really good fucking minutes, and you can put Cameron Payne, if he's healthy, in there, play some decent backup point guard minutes.
Yes.
And you got busy, play the big. It comes down when you talk about the depth, the lack of that for both teams, maybe. It's who's the best players, right? We Suns have the best players on the court. I know Jokic is going to be MVP, but we're talking about playoffs right now.
He won't win the MVP, but he's a 2-time MVP and probably will come in second in MVP voting. But
He
carry on, my wayward son.
Oh, did I say this year?
Yeah, you said he's going to win MVP.
He should be. Well, he's not going to. It's Embiid. Booker is okay. So if you want to just go between the two, Booker or Jokic, who would you rather have? A lot of people would say Jokic. All right. Well, then let's just watch the series. You seen Booker in the first round. That was against everybody but Kawhi and Paul George. That was always pointed out. Oh, they weren't there. So that's why he went off. Okay. Well, let's just see how this series plays out because you guys don't have defense on Book. Jokic, I would take maybe a little bit over Booker just because of that debate, MVP, most valuable player. But then you got KD. And then who else you got? Jamal Murray? You know what? Ayton always has his way against the Nuggets.
If you're playing this game, the Suns, if you go down the roster. It doesn't
look good in the Nuggets' favor. It just doesn't when you go down the roster.
By the time we hit the 7th and 8th spot, we still have what I would call better players. What I'm hoping in the series is Monty Williams realizes that and utilizes that, right?
I mean, he can't fuck it up. If he's doing the 8-man rotation with Cameron Payne, can you fuck it up?
Of course. Well,
if there's no Shamet and just Payne and a Kogi,
I'm all for that. I'm all for that.
Okay, then 8 guys.
And remember,
40 minutes for the big guys. Who cares?
Yeah, 40 minutes. Okay, I don't want them 45 minutes. Like again,
but it might happen, man. If they can win a series in 5 and do it, then you got to do it.
It'd be great. But again, just so for those of you who don't remember, 2 years ago, Cameron Payne in the 4 games played against the Denver Nuggets in the Western Conference Semifinals, he had 16.3 minutes played. He had 6.8 points. He had 2.3 assists, 2.5 rebounds, and he shot 42% from the field and 30% from beyond the arc. So not the greatest series from him. He really shined in that Western Conference Finals that season. When you start to, as you mentioned, and you kind of got ahead of me there, but when you start going, number 1, number 2, number 3, their big 3 versus our big 3. You look at Jokic and what he's done in the playoffs thus far and this regular season. This regular season, you like that picture, huh?
Peace.
I'm Nikola Jokic.
Player's going to play.
And the regular season, he averaged 24.5 points per game, 11.8 rebounds, and 9.8 assists per game. Thus far in the playoffs, again, number 1 seed against the number 8 seed, but a little bit higher points per average, 26.2, 12.4 rebounds, and 9 assists a game. In the regular season, he shot 63.2% from the field, 38.3% from beyond the arc, and 82.2% from the free throw line. Thus far in the playoffs, that field goal percentage dropped rather dramatically, 48.5%, 50% from beyond the arc, and 70% from the line. And obviously, when you're playing against the Minnesota Timberwolves and they have Rudy Gobert, they have Karl Anthony Towns, they can throw a lot of bigs at you. That field goal percentage is going to kind of fall. Offensive rating of 124.2 during the regular season and 120.9 during the postseason. And as you mentioned, you bring up Devin Booker, who just looks so sexy right there. He's contemplating life.
Mamma mia.
27.8 points per game in the regular season with 4.5 rebounds and 5.5 assists. That's 37.2 points per game in the postseason thus far. 5 rebounds per game, 6.4 assists per game. He's doing so on 60, 46, 85 splits. Again, and you already answered this question, so I'll allow myself to take a shot at it. Which guy would you rather have again, the majority of people are going to say Jokic because of what he does in all aspects of the game, how he can post triple doubles and near triple double stats consistently. Devin Booker's playing another level right now, and he's playing so on both ends of the court. And obviously, Jokic isn't going to be guarding Booker, and Booker's not going to be guarding Jokic. It's an apples to oranges kind of comparison. But I'll take this Devin Booker every day and twice on Sunday. We're getting fucking Michael Jordan on our team right now. We're getting Kobe Bryant type performances right now. How could you not want that? It's unbelievable. Now, when you start to go into some of the secondary players, as you mentioned, Jamal Murray, and he, again, is the leading scorer. During the regular season, he's scoring 20 points a game. He's at 27.2 in the playoffs. During the regular season, 4 rebounds per game. He's at 5.6 in the playoffs. During the regular season, 6.2 assists. He's up to 6.4. The splits he's doing it on as currently are 47 from the field, 42 from beyond the arc, and 91 from the free throw line. Our second best player, you know who he is. He's Kevin Durant. He's averaging 28.4 in the playoffs, 7.6 rebounds, 6 point. Isn't that crazy?
Second best player.
Second best player is 28.4, 7.6 rebounds, and 6.2 assists. The thing that, and I was having this conversation with somebody today, the thing about Kevin Durant that you don't really talk about too much is those rebounds and those assists that he does. He does everything on this court, man. He does everything on it. He's out there dishing the ball. And again, we know that we still haven't hit that Kevin Durant game. But you mentioned it before, and I think we can both agree. Kevin Durant over Jamal Murray, win for the Suns, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And
you know what to count on.
And in the eyes of the nation, it's advantage Nuggets with Jokic. It's debatable right now due to what Devin Booker's done.
Because there's a narrative that he didn't do it against Paul George and Kawhi, even though in the bubble he did it. So you know what I mean? Like there's always going to be that thing against Book. He'll never get to the actual. He has a higher ceiling now, as Suns fans can see, a much higher ceiling. We don't even know. I feel like this is kind of the tip of the playoffs. You just don't know how good it's going to get against the defense when it gets a little bit better out there. It's going to be a little bit crazier for Book, those shot attempts, and the more aggressive play on defense. But I think if you're going national wise, it's going to be Jokic for sure.
Of course.
We're of course going to choose Booker. But also I think the KD, like the assist factor, like who's going to be setting who up. You know what I mean? KD, Booker, and Chris Paul over Murray and Jokic. You know, that trifecta running your offense over Jokic and Murray, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I would choose those 3.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's
big. What about MPJ? He's kind of, when you talk about X factors, I feel like MPJ is going to be a big X factor for the Denver Nuggets.
Yeah.
Thus far, it's 16.4 points per game, 8.2 rebounds, and that's big. During the regular season, he averaged 5.5 rebounds. He's crashing the glass. And due to his length and his size, he's going to be something who could potentially swing some possessions for this Denver team, and that's what's concerning to me. 1.2 assists, no big deal. 49.2% from the field, 42.4 from beyond the arc, 66.7 from the free throw line. And then our last guy's DA, man. 16 points per game, 11.2 rebounds per game, less than assists per game, 53% from the field, 0% from beyond the arc because he hasn't taken one, and 55% from the line. Ugh, DA, hit your fucking free throws. What's interesting about him is he's the 113.2 guy. His offensive rating during the regular season was 113.2, as was his defensive rating, which is also his defensive rating currently in the playoffs. So obviously, it's time to have that conversation. The DeAndre Ayton versus Nikola Jokic conversation. A big aspect of this postseason series will be just that. Will be DeAndre Ayton and Nikola Jokic. Do you know what their records are against each other in the throughout their entire career? And in fact, I might as well because I'm asking a question.
You know what time it is.
Trivia time.
Played against each other 14 times in their career.
Oh, I was going to say, is it 7-7?
It's 7-7.
Yeah, I was going to say that before you said 14.
Wow,
is that fucking weird?
That's
I'm pretty gay. Jansers is the most useless knowledge out there.
Yes, you have been killing. You've been crushing.
That is weird. I don't know.
Crushing.
We're all connected.
Trivia time. But here's what's interesting. In the regular season, DeAndre Ayton is 3-7 against Nikola Jokic. In the postseason, he's 4-0. Obviously, those 4 coming 2 years ago. If you look at how they play against each other, DeAndre Ayton, when he plays against Nikola Jokic, averages 18.9 points per game, 11.6 rebounds per game, 0.9 assists, 1 steal, and 0.8 blocks, whereas Nikola Jokic averages 26.9, 11.9, 7.2 assists, 1.5 steals, 0.9 blocks. What I notice when I look at those numbers is the assists are a little bit down. You're not going to stop Nikola Jokic, period. DeAndre Ayton's not going to stop him. We're gonna watch games in this series where we're gonna go, damn, DeAndre Ayton had a good game today. He played Nikola Jokic correctly, and Jokic will have 30 and 15. It's gonna happen.
But that's still stopping him, right?
But it depends on what happens around him. How did he stop him? Did he fluster him? Did he fluster him into some bad passes? Was it a game in which he had 4 turnovers? Was it a game in which he got that 30 points, but he did so by shooting the ball 27 times to do it? That's what's going to be a key to this series. What are your thoughts on DA versus Jokic in this series?
The one thing I'm really excited to watch with him is just the pace he can play at against Jokic, right? Jokic is kind of, a little bit slower than DA. So DA has to take advantage of that, beat him up and down the court. That's going to be something that's going to take a lot out of DA, just make sure that every possession counts to where you can beat this guy. Once the ball's rebounded, go. As soon as you get the ball, pass it up to Chris Paul, pass it up to Booker, and beat him down the court.
That's what he's done in the past, right?
Beat him back down the court, get good positioning. That's all you need on him. You're saying like 30 and 15, it's going to happen, right? I mean, it's just like KD. We watch KD, and we're like, it's not KD yet, but he's putting up 30 and 12 or 30 and 11. Crazy. But it's not KD yet. We'll watch these games, and we'll be like, you know what? DA did a good job because he can be more physical with this guy. He can make it difficult. It can be like we can be up 6-7 with like maybe like a minute left in the game, and you just know that he's going to get the big board. He's going to out hustle Jokic for the opportunity. He's going to do that, and I can count on him to do that. I feel like in the series, and that's outplaying him. That's just being better than Jokic in those moments. The stats are going to be there for Jokic, but I'm just saying, DA, if he can turn it up, which are going to have to keep talking to him the whole game, if he can turn it up, he can have his way in moments to where he can be, and he's already my X factor in the series, just to win the series. Yet. Yeah, I know. I'm sorry. It was getting late, so I don't know if we missed it or we're going to do it next.
No, you're fine. You're fine. Yeah, it's coming up, man. We got all night, baby. We're going to talk all night about this series. You know what I'm saying? First game Saturday. A couple things that I want to give a shout out in the chat. Again, thank you for those of you who are watching live. But Joel Ramirez gave us $5 in the super chat. Says we definitely matured as fans. That being said, Suns in 5. Look at my money. He's got a bunch of money emojis. We're so mature, aren't we? That's absolutely great. Ted Lubin, I like what Ted says here. Says the Suns Nugget matchup reminds me of Nash Suns versus Duncan Spurs. Denver relies on Jokic too much, like the Suns used to on Nash. That doomed us and will doom the Nuggets now. I can see that. I can see that point of view. And I know that they're going to run a lot through Jokic. And to your point, Matthew, with DeAndre Ayton sheerly using hustle to his advantage, athleticism to his advantage, running up and down the court to his advantage. Because guess what? Rudy Gobert, you're not going to get that. He's a lumbering, he's a lumberjack. He's like from Northern Arizona University. He's just lumbering down the court and whatnot. Whereas DA can utilize his athleticism and speed simply to tire Jokic out at times in this game. We've seen it happen in the past. We're going to see it happen in this series. And that's an advantage that we can hopefully utilize to negate some of his effectiveness because he's ultimately going to be effective, and you just have to understand and appreciate that. El Colonel says Denver is too proud to let Booker beat them. They will double book more than KD. And both of these comments bring up, kind of a thought process of mine. When I start here and we talk about Book being doubled, it will happen. Kadavius Caldwell-Pope, Jamal Murray, they'll send MPJ for some length. They're going to do anything they can to fluster Devin Booker, take him out of his game. That's going to open up other aspects of this offense. It's going to open up Chris Paul for spot up, catch and shoot threes, which when he knocks him down, good luck stopping the Suns. Kevin Durant's going to have MPJ on him, Aaron Gordon on him. While these guys are bigger and taller, they're also guys he can get around with much more ease, and they're not smaller. Like I mentioned the last series, a lot of the Clippers were getting underneath Kevin Durant like Draymond Green does and bothering him and not letting him get that first step. These guys have to play a step back because of their lack of quickness. They have to play a step back so they can try to recover with their lateral quickness. And if that's the case, Kevin Durant, no one creates better space than Kevin Durant, whether he's going to the rim or he's taking a pull-up. Now, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, no, that's a good thing you pointed out there because if they're going to be in a position where they're kind of taken out of just the play in a way where they're just a foot back just because they can't keep up with KD and Book, that's because like they're scared of them driving. And then when that happens, when they don't know what to do in those situations, it might lead to some fouls. this last game or this last series with KD, like him getting to the line, it just seemed like a difficult task. The Clippers were all over him most of the series, and a
the
lot
officials,
of calls weren't being made.
Yeah, the officials
they were letting that happen.
them.
But this defense with the Nuggets, to me, are a little bit more clumsy in a way where they're going to have to make up some ground. And when they're doing that, it's going to lead to some fouls. That's why I think the pace plays such a big factor in the series, to where Booker, even if the doubles come, that's fine. Who's going to guard these guys one-on-one? Like you said, you mentioned the names. It's not going to really happen. Even if it does, they can cook them, get to their spots, and do what they want to do. But when the doubles come, pass it out. Any kind of Nuggets defender coming over to try to help, there's going to be fouls. I think this is like the one series where the Suns can get to the line a lot, and they can actually slow down the pace even more and just work their way into bigger leads because they can get to the line and just make it more difficult on the Nuggets defense.
Well, look at what happened to the Suns in this last series. Because of the attack mode that the Clippers were in, they were the ones who were constantly on their heels. And they were the ones who were allowing them to get to the rim at will because they were afraid of the fact that the Clippers were quicker than them. All right, so here's another trivia question for you. I won't play the drop. The Suns and the Nuggets are right next to each other in pace of play in the NBA. Where do they rank in the NBA when it comes to pace of play?
Oh, it's I don't know. Is it like 22 or something? Or 28 or something crazy?
It's the Suns are 22nd. Motherfucker,
okay.
You're good. And the Nuggets are 23rd. So these are teams that play at the same pace. So it'll be interesting to see if the Suns at times, especially given who is out on the court, will kind of turn the gas on or turn the gas off. The other thing I was going to talk about, especially when it comes to DeAndre Ayton, is something I've mentioned. I believe I mentioned on the last podcast, and it's something I've definitely been talking about with anybody who will listen to me on the street, which is very awkward. Again, we're sitting there in the bar tonight. We're at Marley's. We're watching the NFL draft. I'm sitting there like talking basketball to people, and people are like, "I don't give a fuck, dude. They're taking Paris Campbell or whatever the guy's name is."
Yeah, who cares about football right now?
Yeah, I
got to prep for the pod, man.
I'm like, I don't give two shits. But DeAndre Ayton plays well against finesse centers, and Jokic is a finesse center. Yes. And if we look at the remainder of the playoffs, outside of Joel Embiid, who's still out there, it's a bunch of finesse centers. So this is going to be something that plays in advantage of the Phoenix Suns and of DeAndre Ayton. So now I will ask you the question, Matthew. Who is the X factor in this series if the Suns are to win it? And if they lose, who didn't perform their job as the X factor?
So I did say DA is going to be the X factor. I'm not going to say if he doesn't perform, we lose because of that. I think if I switch it around to where I originally thought it was going to be KD as our X factor, because the first round I said Booker has to play ridiculous.
Yes.
He played ridiculous. Now I'm saying KD does. But it's like, what else do you want? Look at the stats. You just know those runs that KD can go on where he can just be streaky and put the Suns up by 12 or 15 points, and it's over. Like, he can do that. He hasn't really done that yet. He's had a few shots here or there that go in consecutively, but it's never been killer yet. He can be the killer. So I'm going to kind of switch it a little bit and go that way. If KD is not that guy, then Booker doesn't have help. And I think that the series can get out of control where Jokic is just controlling so much on the other end where the Suns cannot keep up. That's why KD has to go to the next level. He has to be prepared for this team in just a way of like, I know what to do when the double comes. Of course he knows what to do, right? But the only thing is just get his shots to go in. I think he had good looks against the Clippers, but they were just so physical on him that the release and stuff was just really awkward and just hard to watch. Mm-hmm. I feel like it's going to be easier, smoother shots going up for KD to where he's killing it. And Book, man, Book's just not going to miss. If KD can just be that guy too, then it's over. If he's not, we don't win the series.
My X factor? Who the heck are you?
I'm Kevin Durant. You know who I am. Y'all know who I am.
Did anybody see a sniper? Did anybody see anything?
I'm one of the best players to ever play the game.
I mean, he's one of the best players to ever play the game. And he's going to have opportunity. I really think that the matchups that we get in this series are going to be beneficial to Kevin Durant. I mentioned it before. I'll say it again. The Clippers pestered him. That was their game plan. Let's pester him. Let's annoy him. Let's push him off his spots. Let's make it difficult for him to get open. And he still went for 28 points a game. We might see it flip. Last time these two teams played together against each other in the postseason, Chris Paul was the leading scorer on the team. Devin Booker had, I think he had Chris Paul had 25.6. Devin Booker had 25.3. Devin Booker will not be the leading scorer in this series. Devin Booker is going to be great, but Kevin Durant is going to be what carries this team past them. Now, that being said, I know that you listened to the DNVR podcast and you heard some of their thoughts. From a Nuggets point of view, what were they thinking about this series? What were they saying? Enlighten us.
Well, I mean, it's kind of weird to listen to them because they're a little bit too optimistic, right? Just like us, they know that they're going to win. They basically just broke it down saying the rebounding is going to be a big thing, that they can out rebound the Suns, they can out hustle them. They think MPJ and they think that Aaron Gordon can be that guy that can just power their way down into the post and grab those big boards when it's needed. This is true. This is why I pointed that out earlier. If we can actually keep up with them on our end, then it might be an okay series for the Suns rebounding wise. They also brought up too, Chris Paul not really being a non-factor as much, but also just wanting this. And they did talk about how the Nuggets were just going into this series where they're at practice. They're like the Gerald Bourguet, right? They're on the sideline watching them practice. They said it's fun. It's a fun atmosphere. They said this is a team that doesn't look like they have anything on their shoulders, that it's not a must win, right? That's why I said earlier, it's like they're going to act like it's not big, but it is deep down inside. I think this Nuggets team, organization, fan base really think they have the series. They think they're overlooked. And of course they are for sure.
They are
for sure. But they just think they have the upper edge because they have Jokic and then they have the Jamal Murray back and a healthy team.
Yeah, Aaron Gordon is one guy we haven't talked about, much akin like CP3. Like those are the fourth of each of the core fours of the teams, if you will. And Aaron Gordon will have an effect on this game and this series. And he is somebody who plays physical, and he's somebody who goes for the highlight dunks, and he's going to try to make his impact. And, when you look at the season series between these two teams, you have to remember the Nuggets beat us on Christmas Day, 128-125 in overtime. That's when Devin Booker got hurt. Then they beat the shit out of us by 29 points, 126-97 on January 11th. And that was the game, if you remember, in which Aaron Gordon had that dunk over Shamet that was like an absolute posterizer where it was called a charge and they reviewed it for no reason. Like Denver's out of challenges and they still challenged, or they still got a challenge somewhere. And then the Suns beat them 100-93 on March 31st. And then April 6th, we beat them 119-115. Now, if I remember correctly, I don't even know if Jokic played in either one of those games. So it's a season series that was split. We don't really know who this Nuggets team is versus the Kevin Durant / Devin Booker version of it. And it's a team you can't overlook. They do have depth. They do have talent. There's a reason they're the number one team in the NBA and in the Western Conference, and did so by taking their foot off the gas pedal strategically and still found a way to cruise into the playoffs feeling good about themselves. And as you mentioned, feeling at ease with who they are, what they offer, and how they can execute the game of basketball. It's a fundamental. I'll go back to where I started. The thing that scares me about this team is they're a fundamentally sound basketball team. They have Nikola Jokic, who can pick you apart. You got Aaron Gordon, who can rebound, and then you got shooters around him, and Jamal Murray, who can run the point, and MPJ, who can shoot and hit some mid-range things. They're not going to be an easy out. There's, if that Suns and 4 guy shows up, just fucking strap a firecracker to his dick and light it, and just bam.
Well, that's the one thing that DNVR was talking about. The chemistry thing is big on their side. They think that's a real thing, and it is. But if you're talking about, like, this isn't like Michael Jordan beating the Pistons finally or anything like that, right? I mean, that was years. No. This is nothing like that.
Yeah.
I think the way the NBA is now, you go into a playoff series, you go into the playoffs with the roster you have. Chemistry, yes. I don't think it matters as much. You've seen teams, like even the Hawks against the Celtics, pushing it to game 6. You know what I mean? That team was fucking a clusterfuck, and they still won. You know what I mean? It's all about the attitude of these teams. I think it just has to do with the confidence of these guys being like, we're going to fucking win. And that's all it comes down to for me. And I think when you have Booker and KD on the team saying, we're going to fucking win, you have Chris Paul, who's like, I don't care, I'll play 45 minutes. We're going to win. They have that attitude. They're going to win. If the Nuggets get inside their own head and they think like, damn, dude, we might lose this series again to the Suns team, if that starts to creep in, that's going to be very dangerous. And that's where I just think the Suns have the advantage. I don't care about the chemistry. I really don't. You just put these guys on the court. And if I'm looking at one side, I'm like, I'm going to take KD and Booker over anybody else really in these playoffs.
No, right? I get it. Trust me, I get it. And it's understandable that they're confident, and they should be. But I'll tell you this. If you ask any Nuggets fan which side of the bracket they were on, they didn't want to be on the one where Devin Booker and Kevin Durant were coming to town. I'll tell you that. So,
no one did, except for the Clippers.
Yeah, no shit, right? If you look at DraftKings, entering this series, the Suns are favored. They're minus 140 to win the series, whereas the Denver Nuggets are plus 120 to win the series. So even though the confidence is there, the money's not so far. So I'll ask you this, Matthew. Final question. Prediction for this series. You're saying Suns in 7, I assume?
I am Suns in 7. Home court doesn't matter.
I'm saying Suns in 6. I think we take either game 1 or game 2. We win a couple here in Phoenix, and we win that game 6 and just call it a series and get ready for the next one. At least I hope.
Yeah, I think it's going to be one of those where it's going to be just neck and neck. It's going to be neck and neck, one game. I don't think it's going to be anybody takes a 2-game lead in this series.
What I will say in this series, of the 4 series that will remain, obviously not all of them have been decided yet. We still have to figure out if it's going to be the Lakers and the Warriors, or if it's Memphis and the Warriors, or Memphis and the Kings, or the Kings and but on the other side, the Celtics are going to be playing the Philadelphia 76ers. You have the Knicks playing the Heat. I think of the 4 series that remain, this will be the least talked about one. This is going to be the under the radar one.
You think so? Yeah, I did say that at the beginning.
Yeah. And I'm okay with that too. So I'll say this not only to myself, but primarily to myself, but also to all you Jamsters who are watching. Remember one thing about the playoffs, and I tell myself this all the fucking time, and I still can't get over it. Just remember, every time you lose, it's not that you can never win again. And every time you win, it's not that you can ever lose again, because it feels like that. This series, the first game is on Saturday. What time did we say it is, Matt? It's like 5:30 p.m. on Saturday night. Game 2 is Monday. Game 3 is Friday. However the Suns are feeling after games 1 and game 2, they're going to have 3 consecutive days off before they play. It's going to feel like an eternity, and it's going to feel like if we go up 2-0, if we're down 0-2, it's going to feel like we're going to get swept. And we just have to navigate our lives through that bullshit fucking playoff basketball.
Yeah, we do. Man. I think what we expect too is, I don't know in this series really, clean wins, you know what I mean? But you just realize it's the playoffs, it's going to be nasty. And even if the Suns go down 0-2, I'm not going to promise anything on the pods after. I'm going to be a complete wreck. But deep down inside, I know now if we're 0-2, it's still not going to be over. I just think that it might take some more time for the Suns group to gel. There's the word.
I'm going to have to snip that.
Gel?
No. You just saying those words, and then when you're losing your shit after a game, I'll just play that little drop, and you'll be like, ah! Anything else you want to talk about on this edition of the Suns Jam Session podcast? No shit, man.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Jay Crowder, right? Man.
I mean, you brought it up. It's like when you lose, you think you're never gonna win, but that team was so close to getting rid of Budenholzer, and now it's like, now it's talks again. You win a championship, and all of a sudden you're back on the block.
Yeah, the Heat, winning that series is it's beautiful. It's great.
It's awesome.
You knew that in this playoff run, due to the way that the teams were, there was no truly dominating team this season. The Bucks were the closest thing to a dominating team this entire season, and they lose in the first round. I'm expecting, if the Lakers play the Warriors, that means both of this, the 2 and the 3 seed go down. That's insane shit, but it's acceptable in the Western Conference because it was so topsy-turvy. The difference between the Kings and the Warriors was 2 games. The Suns and the Nuggets, like I mentioned at the top, it's 8 games. That's pretty dramatic, but to see the 1 seed lose to the 8 seed, and then you have obviously the Jay Crowder comments, just all of that.
Did he say anything after, or just comments?
Of course. He did something in all caps somewhere. I don't know. Did you see what Giannis said after the game?
Yeah, the whole thing. Michael Jordan didn't win 9 seasons.
He's talking about what he was talking about. What failures? Yeah, John Nelson says it in the chat. He goes, Giannis and failure. What he said about failure, it's like, fuck, man. Why do we have to lose to such a great player? Giannis, he nailed it. He's like, dude, not you don't fail.
That's the thing. Everything's a failure unless you win, and then even if you win, you're expected to win again.
Yeah, even
so it's not a failure. The 63 win season from the Suns 2 years ago, or I'm sorry, last year. It seems like forever ago.
64.
64, excuse me. 63 to beat the record. 64 wins. It's like everyone just didn't give a fuck because we didn't win anything. You know what I mean? But great fucking moments from that. That was the best year to watch. Of course, it was the best year to watch, but that team will never forget. But then, yes, we did. We forgot because no one cares anymore about them.
Yeah, nobody cares.
It sucks. But doesn't it suck though?
Yeah, of course.
But it's that's just the way bummer. It is. I know, but that's fucking insane.
I hate taxes. I still got to pay them. I get it. It's all bullshit. And on that note, Jamsters, we're going to go ahead and we're going to skedaddle out of here. We're going to see you live on Saturday after Game 1 of the Western Conference Semifinals. Should be about 8 o'clock Arizona time. So make sure you tune in at that time. If you're listening, take some time out of your Saturday night, come hang out at the jam session, watch along live. Hit that thumbs up button if you're watching this at any point, live or otherwise. And again, if you're listening, give us a 5-star review. We truly appreciate it. Until then, we'll see you come Saturday night. Saturday.
Yeah, I'm going to go home with your family.